Last week, in addition to highlighting the hamstrings, we talked about the importance of counter poses and sequencing in yoga classes. Today, we're going to discuss some warm-up ideas and talk about some hamstring-specific poses. To begin, I always make sure I and my students are connected to the breath. Warming up the rib cage is something that I think often gets overlooked. Pranayama is helpful, and sometimes we can add some visual aids to assist ourselves as well. For example, if you're sitting in Sukhasana or easy pose and you feel tension in your upper shoulders, you can focus your breath on that area. Oftentimes, this can help make our pranayama more active and personalized. You can suggest that your students focus their breath in an area that feels best for them at that time. You do not need to tell them specifically where to focus because it will be different for each person. Just invite them to focus their breath wherever things feel tense for them. Another thing I really like to do in a warm-up is engage and lengthen all the main muscle groups so that when I take the class into a different or maybe more intense pose, at least the muscles have been woken up a little bit, right? It's kind of the whole idea of the warm-up. This does not have to be a super lengthy endeavor, but it is important. To wake up the hamstrings, I will often start with a nice easy half forward bend, allowing my knees the freedom to bend as much as they need to. I do not encourage myself or my students to push through or engage into pain. The knees will straighten as the hamstrings begin to gain more blood flow and possibly start to lengthen. Bridge pose is a nice pose for activating those glutes and hamstrings. I sometimes use both a seated wide leg fold and a standing wide leg forward fold if my hamstrings are feeling particularly tight. But when I do this, I make sure I'm also countering this by lengthening my quads, perhaps in hero's pose or a standing quad stretch. I like to feel the difference in where I hold tension when I'm seated versus when I'm standing. And sometimes this simple thing helps me become more acquainted with my own body.